Hello and welcome to Sarastro's Painting. In this video I'll be sharing my approach to painting Djarin's Beskar Armour from Atomic Mass Games' Star Wars Legion. The Beskar armour is certainly the most interesting part of the model to paint, and creating attractive non-metallic metal effects like this can be a fun challenge, and not too difficult once we break things down. If you're interested in how I painted the rest of the model, you can find a link to a full PDF guide on screen and in the video description. At this stage you can see that I've laid down some dark base colours, and I've also provided a simple brown and black shade. I'm going to begin by adding some brown tones to the palette, which I'll be using to create the impression of the surrounding terrain being reflected in the armour. You really don't need to use these exact colours however, as long as you loosely match the tone of the ground that you've given your Mandalorian. I'm starting by mixing quite a dark brown, and I'm placing this into the most shadowed and downward facing parts of the armour. I'm now moving on to the flatter, more forward-facing areas and sketching in where I feel the land might be reflected, creating a horizon line in the process. Needless to say, it's well worth studying stills from the TV show to get a feel for the kinds of shapes we can see created by these environmental reflections. We can be fairly sketchy whilst doing this. Next I'm mixing a lighter shade of brown and using this to paint the front T-section of the helmet, along with some of the other areas where the ground is being reflected in the metal and I want some variation, or to pick out some highlights. Notice I'm leaving the horizon line nice and dark to maximise the contrast with the reflection of the sky. For the rear of the helmet, I ended up going back and forth a fair bit, playing around with different levels and shapes, but at this stage we just want to block the colours in, then see how things look. I'm now placing my sky tones on the palette, simply using black, white and a couple of different shades of blue. And again, these could really be whatever blues you like. And here I'm mixing a bluish grey tone using black, white and a little blue. I'm looking for a mid to light grey colour and ended up with something quite close to Citadel's rust grey. I'm then painting all of the areas where I want the impression of sky being reflected in the armour. I'm now adding some black lining to most of the prominent grooves and recesses. It's good to do this now whilst it's still pretty easy to fix any untidiness. I'm also painting the inner visor in black. I'm now returning to the earth-coloured areas and mixing a light beige tone to begin adding some more refined highlights. And here I'm beginning to play around with some random reflective patterns for the front of the helmet. Next I'm lightening my blue-grey tone with some white, and I'm beginning to highlight the rest of the armour. I've decided to place my brightest highlight here at the front right of the helmet. To help gauge the overall balance of levels, I've decided to jump ahead and place my strongest highlight now with a mix of white and vanilla white. And I'm now gently increasing the levels of blue in the midtones with some thin glazes of the light ultramarine blue. With the main elements in place, things are already looking pretty good, and you could really stop at any point from here on out. I'm now freely alternating between adding some additional highlights and pushing the levels of blue. I'm also softening out the edges of this bright highlight on the helmet. And for the large areas, like here on the chest, I played around with some cloud-like textures, keeping the paint nicely thinned. I'm also pushing the levels for the earth-coloured highlights, especially for sharp edges like this. I'm now just moving around the figure, making various tweaks and refinements. Here I'm just adding some more vertical strips of reflection to the front of the helmet. I also went back and forth a bit trying to get a small reflective glint on the visor. And once again you can see me pushing the paint around on the chest, searching for a bit of irregularity. I've just noticed that the right leg piece is somewhat unique, so here I'm first providing some black. And for the reddish patches, I'm using red ochre mixed with a touch of black. We can then add the chips and battle damage with some pale grey. And these are my last few refinements. I'm taking care not to oversaturate the levels of blue. And I've once again added some vanilla white for these brightest glints. Here I wanted to create the impression of the cloak being reflected at the base of the helmet. And this completes the Beskar armour. Thank you so much for joining me. I do hope you found the video useful. As usual, you'll find a full product list in the video description, along with all of the places I can be found online, including the various music platforms. My very special thanks go out to my amazing patrons for their kind support. Join me again soon, and happy painting!